Okay, am you able to hear me now? Okay, so I'm trying to do a similar non-metallic silver like I did on the chain here on this kind of face design that's in the leg. And I'm trying to match the light angle if you're viewing it from the front. So I actually looked when it was black at where the kind of my lights were creating natural highlights. And then I'm trying to kind of mimic that and then boost it up so that it matches. So initially you won't see much. It won't be really until we get to kind of the brighter levels of the highlights that things will appear. But really trying to catch this top part here on the left, and then here on the right to not hit kind of this whole bump you see here, but really only this edge of it to kind of bring it up as if light is hitting it from the front. And just the brightness here. Make it a little bit more visible. Trying to catch the cheekbones on this face design. Okay, I moved to a much brighter gray. I'm trying to pick out the highest points here that will be facing us from the front. And then some of these, they all kind of have the same angle, so we just have to choose where we want to place the brightest highlights and then make a gradient. And then to do the non-metallic, you really have to just get a good contrast. So you kind of begin with a much more gradual gradient, only going up in value a little bit each time. And then as you get to the highlights, you kind of make a slightly bigger jump. kind of cheating the angle a little bit. But for this back portion, I'm going to put the highlight here on the right side. It may be a little messy now, but I'm going to clean it up. Okay, I'm switching to the... Oh, I much prefer the gold non-metallic. I feel that I've mastered that a little bit better, and I kind of have the paint colors I like to use. On the other hand, I'm kind of pushing myself with this model to do a lot more of the non-metallic silver because I want to be able to have it as an option just as much. I think it's a little bit tougher because with the gold, you have multiple like colors you can use to kind of sell the effect. It's the levels of like oranges and browns and yellows that kind of bring you toward your main highlight. Where in the silver, it's a little bit hard to know what the hue should be of the paint you're using as you go up in value. I also feel like to sell the effect, the highlight has to be a little bit more extreme with the silver. So I switched here to the Pro Acryl Bold Titanium White. Like a lot of whites, it's kind of a thicker paint, but that helps when mixing to get it kind of to just the right consistency because I can take it down to where I need it to be. But it has that kind of strength and opacity to get that really bright highlight there. I might have to go back to some of the midtones and kind of flesh this out a little bit more. I'm going to do a little bit of black and try to clean up one portion of this leg so you can almost see better what I'm doing. But that's the thing too, with the non-metallics you're probably going to be going back and forth. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I feel it's interesting because when you're building it up, you won't get a lot of what feels like what you want to achieve. And then as soon as you put kind of your brightest color, you can start to really see the effect. So I definitely feel like it's a lot more trust the process when you're doing non-metallics than other colors because it won't look right often until the end. And then as I was saying a second ago, you'll probably have to go back and adjust some of the values along the way. So I'm going to mix up here a little bit more of my mid-tone. We're going to apply this to some of those smaller edges that were a little bit harder to see. And then over here on the side, I'll have to clean this one up a little bit. I'm going to adjust this gradient a bit. And then put some on this cheekbone shape. And maybe a bit down here. It's a little bit of a difficult area. I'm going to add a little bit of white in and bring it up. Okay. So now I'll try to go here and just do a small highlight. I'll do some here at the base of the kind of mouth shape. I put it on the opposite side where the light might be hitting the other spot. And then I'm going to go here and highlight the cheekbone area. Okay, I'm going to clean this up just a bit so I can see what I'm doing here. Going back with some black and clean out the middle. And then we'll put the highlight on that back edge. And bring a little bit more of our mid-tone here into this, the back side. So we don't want it to be as bright because it's the side of the shape that's not facing the light. But we need to highlight it a little bit so it's not completely like empty. You kind of have to think about what angles the whole model might be looked at. So I definitely have it trying to hit from the front. But then also imagine that here with the gold, there's kind of going to be a second light source maybe from this side. And then I have a little bit one here where I've glazed in the armor panel to have a light source coming from the top. So some of these will be covered by some of the other armor pieces. I have it in some assemblies now. But that's why I'm focused on getting the front done. And then I'm going to go through, work on the trim, and then work on those kind of extra armor pieces separately when I get kind of happy with this. So I think we're going to go back to this gray tone and see this, the back of this curve. Because light might hit within that curve and reflect back a little bit more than we have now. Then I'm going to go straight to the brighter gray here. And I'm going to come back to this cheekbone that I've been kind of going back and forth on. I'm going to come in with a much brighter white highlight. And try to see if we got those where we wanted. What I'm most excited to paint on this model, of the armor panels actually, we have two shapes here. So there's this backpack. I'm really excited to paint the Slanesh symbol. That's why I'm working on my non-metallic silver. Kind of like El Miniaturista's version, he has this as a bright, like shiny, reflective surface. So I'm kind of trying to practice some of those techniques on the rest of the model so that when I get to the backpack, I can pull that off. I'm also excited to kind of work on the cloak here. I'm not sure exactly what I want to do. I'll probably do something maybe a little bit different than the front portion. I felt like in my mind they were different materials, so I'm going to see what I can do there. I've seen some people do like a galaxy kind of theme, but I don't know. That's one of the last steps because it's kind of the outermost piece of this model. So finish the front, then the backpack, then the cloak. I mean, we also have the head, but it's the helmeted head, so I'm going to paint it kind of like I've done other models like this one here. the green eye lenses. Okay. I think that's looking pretty good. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit, and then we might go to one even slightly brighter highlight. But then I think we'll have mostly gotten it. Might put a little bit more at the midtone in one spot, but we'll see about that. Okay, I'm going to clean up this last bit here. Then I'm going to do the similar green eye lenses, see how that looks here. If I don't like it, I'm going to swap it out, but let's just take a chance. So I always start Stegadon scale green and then work my way up to Pro Curls bright green. I've been using Stegadon scale green kind of as the base of both my blues and greens to kind of help tie them together. Okay. So then I'm going to mix in some Pro Acrylic green. Actually, never mind. Start with Cabalite green, and then we'll go to the Pro Acrylic green. If I was doing something like I did on the Power Fist, I would do a lot of like intermediary mixing between the colors. But for this one, since it's such a small area, I'm probably going to apply them directly. That way, kind of just get that glow effect a lot quicker. Okay, I'm going to go here with the bright green. Just kind of put this in C. We need to just work on another part. I'm going to do a little bit of the brown leather straps. Kind of see what we can do there. We'll start with a Dark Umber by Pro Acryl. Okay. So we've done a lot here, but he has a couple straps in there. We can turn up the brightness a little bit. also been meaning to paint these cables. So after basing in that brown color, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. Sometimes when painting, I like to take a moment and just block something in for later. That's what I did here. And then I'll go back and improve it. So that's the cap light green. And I mix in a little bit of the normal Pro Acryl green. And we have to kind of choose what point we want the brightest. I'll probably do somewhat in the middle of each of these like tubes, and then closer to these kind of connectors to the center. And then these smaller pieces, we'll just do the very center of each. Okay, now we're gonna go with the pure Pro Acryl standard green. Again, just kind of hit the middles of the sections we've already done. Then I'm gonna jump to the bright green from Pro Acryl. This should be the kind of final pop color, so we don't need a lot of it. Just in the middle of everything we've been highlighting. Okay, we're gonna keep working on the non-metallic silver now, and some of the trim. I think specifically on the lake here, and then around the gauntlet area. So like I said before, we have to choose kind of a couple different angles. So I have, let's just here. So I have a light source that's hitting this kind of gold up here. So I'm going to do one directly this direction. Using the same process we did before. Just we need to break up this black that is on this kind of shin guard thing. Because even doing the face here in the non-metallic, it's not really enough to sell this as kind of a different part. Okay, so I'm going to go in with my first color here. Oh, it's a little bit wet still. I'm going to be pretty generous with kind of the darkest gray we'll use. I feel that sometimes when I'm doing non-metallic, I can be almost like too conservative with the highlights, not painting enough of them to cover, or even, or especially I guess the midtones, enough of the midtones to cover the base color. You can see that here with this wing. I wish that I had reduced the amount of brown that you see kind of there in that gap. While it's a shadow needed for contrast, I notice when I actually see gold, like in real life or reference photos, a lot of the time, the majority of it is kind of this mid-tone orangey yellow color, and then bright highlights. Very little actually ends up in the dark brown range. So I think for the silver here, I need to kind of pump up the level of the midtones too. I'm gonna try this. So I'm gonna put a second coat here of our first gray from this angle. And then I'm gonna add a little bit more white. Work on it. I had an art teacher tell me like, if you start with like black, you don't mix in white, only mix like black into white because you'll never quite approach white again. But I find when it comes to mini painting, it ends up working fine for me because I can kind of go through all these like base and like midtones, and then I can come out with like the very bright color. But it's like good that I never got close to it, because then when I'm going to paint that like really bright edge highlight or something, it's kind of space that's been reserved. Okay, well it's still wet. I'm gonna mix a little bit more white and come in with a slightly brighter gray. Trying to kind of mimic what we did here on the front. Trying to make it a little bit brighter because it's a flat panel. And go back to a slightly darker gray color. Kind of push that back down. So I think what I want to do is kind of have the highlight brighten up as we move kind of like up this piece and down that piece, because they both come to a sharp edge. So I'm actually thinning down my gray a little bit to apply it somewhat more slowly, something more akin to a glaze. I'm going to add a little bit more white to that thinned consistency paint. Just kind of pull it toward those areas where you want the highlight. And of course, I'll clean up the black after. When those dry, we'll do another layer, and then I'm going to come through with kind of maybe the brightest one, do an edge highlight at the end. So the difficult part will be that we kind of have to do the same highlight down here on the left side. But we can do this one here on the arm while we wait as well. Sorry, let me adjust the focus here. Okay. So now we kind of go back down to this leg. See if we can kind of paint in a bright highlight here. Now that this side has dried, I'll probably do a little bit more, and we'll also do this kind of left side to bring it together. So and again, kind of return to kind of a bit more base gray. If you don't want to mix it, one of my favorite, just straight out of the bottle grays is Dark Warm Gray by Procryl. I often use that to highlight black if I don't want to do something like too much more. So I'm going to come up here. So you can see there's kind of a ridge. Bring the brush up there. And go to the first kind of point in the armor. This color might be a little bit too bright for what I want. I'm going to come back in with the darker one and go over the edges. But I think that's a good starting point to block it in. And then we want to have a gap right here where the kind of the two highlights fade to black in the middle. We don't want it to be like too bright out of the gate. Okay, good. That actually blended in well. Okay. The gray I've already kind of got on my palette here. Just try that as a highlight again. And then when I kind of get the color I want, then I can just mix in white slowly at a time. Just a little bit. There's kind of two ridges here, and I'm focusing my highlights on a smaller and smaller area in each of those. Okay. Now I think we have a pretty good color built up. And now I'm just going to go in for the highlight. Get some of that bold titanium white and then thinning it down just a little bit so it flows, but it's still very opaque. I'm going to go in here and just kind of put almost a dot in the center of those two areas we've been highlighting. And that kind of gives us the effect there. And since I already have the bold white here, I'm going to come and do kind of an additional highlight here. It might look like it's all the way up, but to me it still appears a little gray. So I'm gonna just hit the corners. Kind of want that color to get its brightest. I'm not perfectly happy with this side, but I definitely think that one on the left now works a lot better. There's a couple of like little studs there that we're gonna go and hit with the highlight too. Move the model a little closer to me so I can have a bit of an easier time with this. And let me adjust the focus. This is the part where that thick white color has to be thinned to kind of just right to be able to actually leave the brush. I'm going to go through here and clean this up just a little bit. Add a little bit more definition. Darken the color between those two areas. We'll also have to do a little bit more of the detail. Maybe not. It's a little bit difficult to determine here. Just to kind of make it make sense, if we're going to have a highlight here, we also have to have a highlight kind of at the top. Kind of like we did on this side. And we'll kind of smooth that transition a little bit. And we'll go in for kind of our brighter highlight. And then clean up the side. Okay, I'm gonna just put some black back down in here to clean that up. Done the edge highlight. And then I feel like the kind of green I put down here didn't pop as much as I want. So I'm going to go do a little bit of a dot of that. Okay. Since we have this bright kind of highlight on the edge here, I think I'll start with this piece of trim, start dark, and then kind of go up to a highlight maybe here at this raised portion on the back of the leg. As a kind of a nice contrast. So I'm going to mix up kind of a new series of gray. The last one I did got kind of messed up with everything I was doing. Okay. I need to apply just a little bit of black again. So move the metal around a little bit if it came off. Okay, we're going to glaze this gray color in. And we've blocked it out. Try to get some smooth transitions. I think that part of my difficulty is when it's a small detail, say like here in the front with these designs, it's kind of easy to see what the light placement is, or on the chain. There's a lot of like edges that are obviously higher than other edges. But when we're talking about like this trim and it's like a smooth curve, it's kind of like, well, how do I do that? And normally I think to sell non-metallics, we really have to have kind of a focus on contrast with a dark spot maybe directly next to a bright highlight to sell the reflectivity. But in this case, kind of on that gradual kind of curve, we're really going to want to have a smooth gradient, because if this was reflecting, there wouldn't be a harsh highlight next to shadow on something that had a smooth curve. So that's why I'm actually going to be kind of glazing in somewhat the grays here, instead of drawing in these kind of almost painterly details like I did on the chain or on some of the spits on the front. And then I think the difficulty with trying to sell it as silver then is, are the kind of bands of color that transition like correct? So like you can see here, as I said, you have a lot of a gradient from the darkest black to the midtone, but then the highlights come in abruptly to sell the silver. So I feel like we're going to have to try to do something similar here. We can't kind of sit too close to the highlight or too close to the midtone. I'm already worried that it looks a little bit too bright, but as I said before, sometimes I can tend to go too dark as well. They say with non-metallics and when you're painting kind of with a somewhat glazing technique, you want to kind of end the color where you want it to be the brightest. So as you can see here, I want my highlight to be in the middle of that arch. So what I have to do is kind of pull from both sides to pull the glaze, to the right and then to the left into that center portion. Right now I've actually mixed in a lot of white already, but I just have it watered down so that I can carefully apply it. Okay, I'm gonna go into some dark warm gray. Highlight the kind of shoe here. Okay, just tackling this trim here. Trying to think of how to best separate the foot and clean up the armor. So there are these subtle armor plates that go around the foot. I might just do those with a traditional metallic, but keep the rim of the boot black. And then I'm going to definitely use a wash to take these down quite a bit when I'm done. So now my plan is having, I think that doesn't seem to work the way I want it. So maybe to keep the trim black, but only do edge highlights that kind of resemble almost a non-metallic, as I've done here. Mix a little bit more white into this and see if we can kind of boost it up. I think that actually looks much better. I'm going to do that here on this kind of extra pad on this side. Okay, the 2 grays I'm going to use done. Okay. Edge highlighting is always difficult. Here, just find a good angle. We're going to hit each of those studs. We'll come around the front here. Highlight this edge. Then we'll switch to our brighter gray and kind of try to make that pop so it matches the transitions on the other metallic parts. We'll come back around here to this side for you. So we'll hit that top edge. And clean it up just a bit. It went over. And then I'm going to mix up a little bit of the bright gray I have with like a pure white and just do some on the corner. Come here, can you see? Okay. Just kind of dot that corner there. Okay. I'll have to do more, but it will kind of match. The next thing I'll have to do is kind of do the same here on this piece of trim that's under the leg. I think if I can hit that top edge, it'll look like it matches everything. Okay. So we're going to try to hit the edge in here. And that way it will appear like the trim has that same metallic finish as everything else. So I'm going to come in with the kind of darker gray we've been using. Start here. Let me adjust the focus here for you. You can zoom in a little bit too. I know that makes it shakier, but okay. So we're going to hit the top edge here clearly. This one kind of sweeps up. So we need to then start kind of bumping things up. So I think here along the bottom lip and then along that top ridge will be the two brightest points. So I'm going to go over, I tend to use a pretty thin down gray or whatever color I'm using. That way I can build up to a brighter color even just with one color by itself before I have to switch. But so we got a couple layers there with the base gray. Now I'm going to go to the warmer gray. And we'll come to the edge here, the top one. I'll get a little more in my brush. And then we're going to come down here and put it right in the sweep of the curve. That'll kind of give us a contrast of like one goes over and then one goes under. Went outside a little bit, so I'm going to clean that up just a bit. I could clean it up at the end, but I kind of like to do it as I go. And then with that brighter gray, I'm now going to move kind of to the side where I've mixed in some more white. We'll kind of put that final highlight. Okay, there's the top. And then we got right in the sweep of the leg there. Now the hard part is we got to kind of do this on many parts of the trim. So there's these kind of downward sweeps here. I might leave those and just paint the studs on this part. There's already a lot going on, so I think we'll be okay. So with the studs, I kind of like to just go to my brightest color and do them quickly. So for these, I'm just going to do a dot of white. Try to get in there pretty close. As careful as I try to be, I often mess these up. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I've been kind of considering how to do the handguards. We could do some here on the side of the power fist actually. Because around there we have some edges that at this point kind of look like they don't have enough detail. So I'm going to go here with my base gray and do a similar thing. Um, yeah, I might try to do some glow effect in the palm. So I guess kind of shading the outside areas here with the black might work. I'm trying to think of kind of how I would do it. Well, I could leave them gray and then actually use the green to kind of be the glow. If I actually kind of go through here with the much wider version of the color. Okay, just kind of blocking in white where I want the reflections of the glow to be. If you could hear, this is a metallic surface, this little kind of brooch-like object. So it should have a little bit of reflection. And then kind of the edges of the gauntlet there. And inside the fingers. Let's go ahead and do the kind of other reflections here. So I'm going to start kind of in a mixture between the base green I use and the kind of mid-tone green. I'm going to apply it very loosely. There's kind of a glaze here over the color. Going to come in with black and just clean this up just a little bit here. I want kind of a separation between these two. And then what I'm going to do is kind of jump up to a brighter green that we're going to do here in the parts that would be most reflective or closest. And then we're going to jump up to the brightest green, which I've said I use the bright green by Pro Acryl. And we will probably mix in some white to get the final bit here. To give it that washed out appearance, I'll mix in the white to the green, make it a little more pastel. a little bit on the cloak where the green reflects. So I'm going to kind of go back with my white here. Just put a little bit on the angles that face downward and where it goes back up here. And then we'll come in with our green. Like I said, I'm watering it down a little bit to kind of glaze it over the white, kind of give it that translucent appearance. Okay. Then on this side, I'm going to give it kind of more of the traditional highlight I have with just the whitish gray. Where the green won't be reaching. I see kind of another spot in here that we can highlight. There's a little clasp. And then contrary to what I tried on this side that I'm going to redo, I think on this side I'm going to try to do that just the metallic kind of edge highlighting. If I don't mess it up first. And we'll do a dot of white on the studs like we did before. Come with black. Bring that one up. Okay, we're going to continue working on the metallics around the power fist. Just kind of blocking in colors with our kind of darker gray tone. These don't have to be perfect, but actually being kind of confident about how you put these early blocks of color in kind of leads to success later. Since mostly lead from the top, I don't think I'm going to do it on those bottom fingers. But I am going to clean up this side a little bit. With some pure black. Here I'm just trying to do a non-metallic silver on the top of this kind of metal bit that connects the two sides of the cloak that will go on later. I have it in a sub-assembly right now.